And I am very excited about doing this next topic because it is time for us to reflect on a very important anniversary in our nation's history. As of Sunday, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum celebrated 20 years as ruler of Dubai. And obviously, the last 2 decades have seen the most extraordinary transformation. Really an era of vision, innovation and nation building. And under His Highness's leadership, Dubai has grown from a sort of dynamic regional hub to a global metropolis, a centre for tourism, commerce, finance, technology, and soon to be AI as well. And today we are really seeking to honour that legacy and to reflect on 2 decades of amazing progress. Plus, we're obviously, Dubai always looks to the future. We also will be looking ahead to the next chapter. Joining me on the line to help me with this is historian Alexander McNabb. He is author of the book Children of the Seven Sands. Thank you so much for joining us on the agenda, Alex. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Yeah, marking 20 years since His Highness became ruler of Dubai. Historically, from your perspective, what actually sets his leadership style apart from, previous eras in this region, in this country?
I was thinking about that one. It's an interesting one because there's a sort of house style. There's the legacy of Rashid, his father, Saeed, his grandfather, and the Maktoum family generally has been a mercantile family that has driven Dubai forwards, particularly in areas like commerce and trade, but also in legislation that protected the rights of the citizens here. A long history of enlightened leadership in an area of the world that isn't famous for enlightened leadership. And in many ways, also his accession, which came in 2006, was a continuation because he'd already been Minister of Defense of the Emirates. He was already acting as a dynamic assistant, if you like, or counterpoint to his much quieter and measured brother Maktoum, whose sad death on the 4th of January led to him becoming ruler of Dubai. But also, let's not forget, tomorrow is the anniversary of his becoming elected as vice president of the Emirates. And then, of course, the 11th of February, he was appointed prime minister of the Emirates. So you've got 3 roles in one, really: ruler of Dubai, vice president of the United Arab Emirates, and head of the cabinet and prime minister of the country. So, but 2006 really did, if he'd been responsible for accelerating the development of Dubai and had been responsible for the growth of the Emirates, 2006 is where he really hit the throttle and embarked on 20 years of quite extraordinary change, not only in Dubai, but across the Emirates.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we have, I suppose, in most people's memories, that the last 20 years, very few people have been here in the UAE as an expat for longer than that. Although I have to say, on the Business Breakfast Show, I discovered that both Brandy and Tom have been here longer than that, as have you, apparently. I suppose as you look back on those 2 decades, what would you suggest, and this is so difficult to do, what would you suggest are the defining milestones of those last 2 decades? Those sort of pivot points.
For me, it's one remarkable fact, which I think few people have paused to give weight to. When he acceded to become ruler of Dubai, the first law he passed in 2006, January 2006, expanded the remit of Dubai Internet City to include research and development. And the second law he passed in that same month established something called the Emirates Institute for Advanced Science and Technology. And that was designed to accelerate the innovation ecosystem of the Emirates. And EIST became the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Centre and launched the UAE National Space Programme. So by 2009, we'd launched Dubai Sat 1 and then Dubai Sat 2, then Khalifa Sat, the first UAE manufactured satellite, then NBZ Sat, the astronaut program, the moon missions, and of course, the Emirates Mars mission, which was designed to transform and completely revolutionize the innovation ecosystem of the Emirates. And that mission undoubtedly did that. It established the space agency, We now have the Emirates mission to the asteroid belt, UAE national team. You've got companies like Thuraya and Yar and Strata and Edge coming on board. The establishment of the space economic zones. And those space economic zones are now home to 200 startups and SMEs operating in the space sector. Now, who thought in 2006 that the Emirates would not only have a national space program, but get to Mars and create economic advantage for a whole new generation based on its capabilities in space? It's really quite extraordinary. When you look back over it, you know, you always hear people going on about His Highness's vision, his vision and his vision. But if you look back at 2006, I certainly didn't, and I knew nobody that did, even envisage the fact that the UAE could have that aspiration or ambition, let alone achieve it, and then turn it into economic advantage.
He does seem to move with such certainty, to have such a bold vision and to make decisions that he, you know, then sticks to and then create extraordinary economic growth, such as you mentioned there. Do you think that there are ever any moments of doubt or even despair over the last 2 decades?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt at all that 2008 brought the global financial system to its knees, and Dubai and the Emirates suffered alongside many other nations. But of course, because Dubai was moving ahead at such pace, because it was building ahead at such pace, it got hit. But then, of course, Dubai since 1905 has been a place of boom and bust and boom and bust. It's just that they've become bigger, these cycles of economic growth and then regression or recession. And so I think 2008 and the years immediately following that must have been a time of enormous challenge, which probably would have broken a lesser man. But what we saw was a slow and measured approach to it, a slow retrenchment. And I think by 2013, when the Expo 2020 bid was won, I think that's when you could probably draw a line under that entire episode and say, actually, the certitude reflected by governments was well placed, and that the country had come through it not only stronger, but having used the interregnum as a way of building infrastructure and building regulation and policy so that it really couldn't happen again. I think COVID was an enormous challenge for, again, globally, for anybody in the world, but the UAE came out of COVID faster, in better shape than I think any other nation on earth. And again, I think that was a result directly of leadership and of, as you mentioned, that remarkable certitude.
He's been described as the man behind Dubai. Do you think that that is fair? You know, is it just down to him?
I think he's probably the man behind the men behind Dubai. I think his ability to choose the right people for the right task, to bring a club of people around him tasked with achieving things. I mean, let's not forget in 1985, the establishment of Emirates Airline with a seed capital of $10 million. Although there was no more money that went into the airline, it almost doesn't matter how much money you've got to establish the world's leading international airline out of 2 leased TriStars, I think there were. Really quite extraordinary. And that wasn't really because he built an airline with his own hands. It's because he trusted the right people and gave them the job and gave them the space to get on with it. And the same is true of many other areas in the city and in the nation. It's about having the ability to manage and lead teams. And I think Dubai Holding, which was established quite soon after he acceded, Dubai Holding became a company that was bigger than Microsoft, bigger than Apple, employed over 300,000 people. These quite remarkable economic plays that he set in place. But he then trusted somebody and gave somebody the task of running them. And I mentioned that the space program, the Emirates Mars mission, Omran Sharaf, who headed that mission, was given $200 million and the task of reaching Mars in half the time of a normal NASA mission. And at the time, he was 27. I mean,
wow.
The amount of faith placed in people sometimes is extraordinary.
I mean, and that is why, in many ways, this is a nation that really trusts its youth, and you see that more than ever now. I mean, and it's it's ironic that just in the last couple of days they've changed the sort of age of adulthood from 21 down to 18. I mean, I've got two more questions left for you and about 2 minutes to get through them, but I want to ask both. Do you think Do you think his record or his legacy, if you like, is underestimated by Western media, for example? Do you think it's underestimated globally?
Undoubtedly. And I think the underestimation isn't in retrospect. I think it was always there. I think it was always a case of get back in your box, stop having this ambition. Who do you think you are? At the time of the launch of DIFC, I think the head of Lehman Brothers told him to stick his neck back in, reel himself back. He was going too far, too fast. Of course, one of those two characters came out of the global financial crisis, and it wasn't the head of Lehman Brothers. So there's always been this sense that Dubai shouldn't have the arrogance that it has, that it shouldn't have the ambition that it has. And then it achieves that ambition. And then the world seems to think that, well, you must have done that unfairly somehow. We're not succeeding and you are. And I think the secret sauce is there in front of all of us. And if you look back over 20 years and more, you can start to see that the track record is such that you really wouldn't write these guys off.
Let's look into the future now. Obviously, because of your work as a historian, we've been looking back the last 20 years. But if you have a crystal ball at hand, I'd like to ask where you think Dubai will go from here. What do you think? Well, I mean, what lessons from the past 20 years do you think will shape the next generation of leaders of the UAE?
I think the fact that there is a generation of leaders, the nation to a great extent for the first 50 years had little choice but to fall forward or even maybe fail forward. It couldn't afford to stand still. There was nothing here. When the Brits left, there wasn't a road of any great significance on a national level. There wasn't a Ministry of Finance or a Ministry of Education. There was no national infrastructure. Everything had to be built. And the emphasis was always on built infrastructure. And then recently, in the second 50 years of the nation, the emphasis has shifted to people. It's building people. Now you've got the infrastructure. Now you can afford to. In fact, you have to build the people. And that young generation of managers and of leaders, particularly Emiratis, but bringing in talent from all over the world, the very finest talent there is. That combination of young talent, youth, innovation, flexibility, economic advantage, global thinking, it's all quite a compelling mix. And there's no doubt at all, in my mind, that this right here is the best place to be in the world today and for the foreseeable future.
Historian Alexander McNabb, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's been a great pleasure taking a journey through the past 20 years and a bit of memory lane there. Alexander is author of Children of the Seven Sands, which is a history of the UAE. But a great pleasure to share those memories. And I'd love you, if you're listening now, to get in touch with your thoughts on what might have been the defining moment of the past 20 years. And that is, of course, because we are celebrating 20 years of rule from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. It was 20 years ago on Sunday when he acceded to rule Dubai. Get in touch, 4001, or you can WhatsApp me, 04871 5500. I wonder how many of us have been here for more than 20 years.